Hello everyone, and welcome to another art video. If you're new here, welcome and hello, or hello and welcome, probably slightly better. And if you are returning, welcome back. I'm so pleased to see you. I had another idea this morning on my morning walk for a new playlist, and that was sparked by a weekend clean out of some art materials where I found some sketchbooks that I was doing during the lockdowns. This was kind of 2021, 2020, 2021, that sort of time frame. And yeah, the world was still either in or coming out of, reeling from, bruised from all of the lockdowns. And I was doing some art, and what I wanted to do, it suddenly struck me as to how much I've changed my style now. This is one I did in 2021. I don't know when in 2021, but I was looking at other artists' work and trying styles and sort of finding my way with gouache a bit, because although I've been painting for many years, since last century, I'm quite new to gouache. And also it's only been since 2020 and the lockdowns, when I decided to sort of do more with art in my life, that I'm also doing things with mixed media. So what I thought I would do is a then and now playlist. So just as a very quick flick through, because this has got all sorts. See, some of these I'm actually okay with and I wouldn't do them any differently. Others, like that one there, that could have been painted yesterday. The rest of these are just all over the place. And there's some that I love, some that I think are absolutely ridiculous, and some that if I painted them again now, I would do a totally different job. And that's what gave birth to this idea. So I thought the other thing is I haven't painted on the verso page here. For most of them, some of them have got some writing, so I don't want to paint over that. But where I've got a fresh page, I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go at much the same scene and see how much I have personally changed in that time and how much my style has changed. So I thought you might like to come along with me. So the first one is the first thing I would do here is go with my gouache, and I'm going to pick a blender mop 3/4 inch, might be a bit big actually. Let me see if I can find something slightly smaller in the same vein. Blender mop half. And we need some dark blue, so indigo for the sky, maybe a bit of black in there. And I don't want to copy the picture, I just want to reinterpret it as to how I might do it at this point in time. And I think that's really interesting because you do change, but I can convince myself, I'm actually this clever, I can convince myself that I've always painted exactly this, like this, even in primary school, and it's actual rubbish. I've changed, and so, you know, do other artists, but we don't often measure the change. So just in the interest of putting my scientific hat on, past life, that's what I did, I'd like to measure the change and see how significant it is. I'm not doing the border, as you can see. Add a little bit of grey now into that colour. I'm going to let that dry before I put the moon, that thing that appears at night, moon, in. So just going back in, actually still not happy with the brush. So I will trade down to a 1/2 inch dome blender. I like these because I don't have to worry about the top, as in the tip. If I've got a lovely round brush, I have to mind that and make sure I don't ruin it. So just get some background colour in there. A bit scrubby. I was very much, and still am of course, a great admirer of Natasha Newton's art, and for those of you who know her well and her way of painting, you'll see lots of influence in these pictures, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I went on to YouTube and I looked at people and I thought, you know what, I'm not happy, but I'm still not happy with this. This is not me. This was her. She makes it look beautiful, and it's her signature style. And I was distressed about how much influence I got, that it didn't feel like copying, but it's so close it made me feel uncomfortable. And I thought, no, this is not what I want to do. So I'm going to have to go off by myself for a little while and see what I can do myself. Right, I'm just adding a little bit of texture to these hills where the moon is hitting it. And I think this is difficult. It's a fairly well-known phenomenon that our brains will take on everything they see, and they store the information away. And sometimes you will look at something in years to come or decide to do something, and you can be very, very sure that it's an idea that you've had, and it isn't at all. It's something you've seen quite a while ago, stored up, and your brain has given back to you. And I find that quite scary as a person who does work professionally, because I'm constantly checking to make sure that the work I'm doing is mine, because I would be horrified if it wasn't. So yeah, it's a bit weird. So might need to trade down a brush size here, just as the dark areas there, a bit of ploughed earth. And then adding some more green in. Oh, that's quite an autumn scene, isn't it? So let's stay with that vibe. It's autumn and winter. Very, very unlike the Germany that is sitting outside my window right now. Okay, just get those colours in. And the front one has a little bit more yellow. I think every time you change medium, you'll change style, because as you may have seen with the flick through there, I've done a lot of watercolour in this book, and the style is just totally different. And then there's some illustrative designs where I've done humans and things like that, and it's just all so different. And that is how it's supposed to be. But like I said, I want my pictures to be my style, and this is the style I've settled into after a lot of practice. Now, the different thing I would do in here that I'm going to do is, here there's no foreground and I've got this border. So I've obviously dispensed with the border, but I'm also going to dispense with the foreground, as in this plain foreground, and I'm going to add a quite moody mixture of the darkest brown I've got, the darkest blue, and also the darkest green, to just give this a little bit of foreground interest, sort of like undergrowth and that sort of thing. We start off with this, and of course the gouache base layers are just that. They're just the base layers, and I'll come back and add other things. However, I want some texture here, quite liking that. Might put a little bit of that up here too. I tend to do things, if I'm doing something in one area on a picture, I'll do it somewhere else as well, just to make it look coherent. So, right, so far, that's how I would do this today. I'm just going to swap brushes there and grab a flat brush so that I can do something on these buildings. This is my Hahnemühle sketchbook, which is a pretty good one for mixed media, if I'm honest. Gosh, there's lots of pink in that white, which I don't really want. I was painting some flowers the other day, and me being me, got into a mess with it. Okay, a bit on there. And the roof can be a brown. That's green. Not good. We want it to be much more brown, grey, that sort of colourway. Seems to be, it's thatched at the moment, but it won't be when I'm finished with it. Don't want that. And a bit of the roof coming down there. Okay. I would go away and dry this, which indeed is what I'm going to do, and then I'll show you what I would do with mixed media over the top. So I shall be right back. Okay, all dry. The next thing now is I'm swapping to a number 4 round brush and some white gouache here for the moon. Careful not to disturb the underlayer too much. Oops, I know, over the edge, doesn't matter, planning something there anyway, that's all right. Bring some of this dark in because it is now disturbed. A little bit of black there, and I probably wouldn't do the moon too differently. It's quite like that, you know, some craters and interest there. That's almost certainly enough. This is not right. That needs to be a little bit darker because it's all in the shadow of the moon. Any part of this house that's actually lit will be lit from the back on this occasion, because although the sun is beaming its rays onto the moon, that is now bouncing back onto the scene here. So these areas will be a bit lighter, but the back of the house will be light, so all the front will be in shade. Right, so that is what I would do with that. And I'd even leave the sky like this. I wouldn't make such a flat sky this time. If I was going to put some stars around, I would be more likely to use my acrylic paint marker. And everything's got pink on it, honestly. Just let me get rid of some of the pink off that. I'll do that later on in my own time. I will grab another one. This is why I've always got so many on the go, because pink stars are not going to catch on. Right, I mean, they might. I'm not judging. If you like pink stars, you have at it. It sounds lovely. I would just put some stars into clusters and constellations this time. It's entirely imaginary constellations, but not so evenly distributed. And some of them might be slightly larger than others, which is how they are in the other one. So I'd probably still do that. Don't want that to look like Orion, so just let me change that. And again, the stars are something you can do afterwards too. When the whole thing is finished, you look back and you think, right, well, it needs this or it needs that. Okay, we don't need the gouache anymore, and I don't need my water, so let's get rid of anything that I'm capable of tipping over. So the next thing now is, like I said, this is an autumn type scene, so I'll stay with those sorts of colours. So I'm grabbing my burnt sienna here. Just to, actually, let's go back a step. Don't really usually work like that. Going from the background in. I'm just dying to do those trees, so I'm not going to. I've got my Chinese white drawing pencil here to try and get some contours into these hills, and keeping it quite light on that line there, and also here. Sort of much the same as I've done here, to be fair, because that's where the moon's hitting it. I think the overwhelming thing here with this one is that I'm far messier and not quite as rigidly controlled, but at the same time there's still lots of detail. So I would do that, and then I would get a grey pencil, swapping to Caran d'Ache. This one's sepia 50%. To put some shadows where one of the hills is behind the other. And just keeping that texture going. Oops, over the top of the chimney, that's great. That was really intelligent. That's what I like about this battery operated eraser, is you can remove it again and watch out for it perhaps. Okay, not trying to get rid of all of the colour, the gouache that is visible, just fill it in. That one's a bit white there, so we're going to fill that in, get rid. And on these trees here, which are a little bit greener, I'm going to go with my green ochre from Luminance, and just my usual sort of distant tree thing is to do that and not much else. And I've got here, where is my Food Nib Hard Faber-Castell Pit Artist pen, because I've got some winter trees there, which I'm hoping you can see with my hand in the way there. I will speed this bit up and just get these trees in where I have them here, and then I shall come back to you very shortly. Just the suggestion of some trees here again, they're a little bit the same. I wouldn't do that now, and I've also added some other foliage, and because this is an entirely imaginary scene, I can do that. It doesn't matter. I'm just waiting for the moon to dry, which I think it has, because then I would get my Chinese white pencil and draw a little bit of light around the moon. When I say draw, I mean just basically a bit of a glow around the moon. Maybe a bit more on it to push some of those dark patches back. Blend it in with my finger. Not huge amounts of anything, just texture. The difference, I mean, I was starting to see the value of texture here, and I do love that, but it has ramped up 1000% since. Right, so that's what I would do there. I might use my Derwent drawing in yellow ochre to increase some of the colour on these back trees, especially where they're on the moonlit side, which is not my usual side. I like normally the light comes in from the left, so that's the way I normally do it, but not this time. Excuse me. Then the next one here is one of these trees at the back. Did I have an orange pencil? I think I dutifully returned it. Dark honey. Let's look at dark honey. So again, same as before, just a little bit of textural interest. These can be done the same now. Get that out of my system. And this one, which is still a little bit wet there. Then I would again come back with the yellow ochre, and the result from that is to have a little bit of coherence, because what I do on one part of the picture I will tend to do somewhere else, and because I've used yellow ochre on the green trees, using yellow ochre on the others as well sort of brings it all together. Okay, next thing, we've got these brown fields at the back here. Let's have a look and see. This is a Derwent Light Fast Sienna, and it's a sort of just a flicking sort of texture. And yes, I do like that colour for it, just to fill in the area. Sort of the hint of crops, or places where crops have been. I don't do a lot of night pictures. In fact, I don't do any at all anymore. This is a bit of light here, which I don't want. So I'm going to fill that in. And I'm using my Derwent Light Fast Forest pencil. And then back with this. That won't take to that. It's only going to stick to the gouache, this pencil. Just keep some textures in there. And then again with the yellow ochre for the main front field, just to get some texture as well. It's really difficult not to go off on an absolute tangent and make it totally different, but the idea is to sort of have the same, because otherwise it's not a fair comparison, to be fair. Not a fair test at all. So just a couple of other marks here and some contours. And the difference I'm allowing myself is this bit here when we get to that. Make sure that's dry now, so I can put a bit more yellow on that. A bit up there. These are separated. What would I do about those branches and so forth? I think for that I would go to my forest pencil, which I really, really love, because it can be green, which is what it actually is, but it can also be a browny grey. It's a really good one to have in the kit, to be honest. So just some marks here where the trees are starting to lose their leaves to the point where the leaves are disappearing. You might further contour this to give more of an impression that this one's in the front. I would keep on with the forest pencil. Again, good for coherence. A little bit of shading on the chimney there, under the eaves. Even though this is the shaded side of the house in particular, then I might, because the house is far away, as in not the main focus, I wouldn't be doing a hell of a lot of detail work on it. Just sort of provide some windows, and it is what it is. And then on the side, bit of shade. But an even better option than that would be one of these. Let me just reach over and grab. This is my Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer, just to add a bit more shade, and then move that around with my fingers, because that's the way I tend to do that now. The house roof, it seems to be thatched, so I don't want it to be thatched. That's the thing. It's thatched, so we're having thatched. I don't want to change it too much. So let me go with a champagne pencil and just put the thatch lines in. Yeah, I think I would much prefer to have the roof as a tiled roof, but it's not what I did. So I'm going to try and stay a little bit true to what I did. So with the champagne colour, and then back with this field colour that I made the marks with there, because again that ties it all in quite nicely. It's only got to be a hint of thatch, to be fair. It doesn't have to be a sort of thing where you could go for a drive and find this particular cottage, because that would be unlikely. Autumn brown to just knock that tree back a bit. And here too, shade to the bottom of the tree. And here in the front then, I would choose, for starters, an olive brown from Caran d'Ache Luminance, to just, this is barely visible as a colour, just to put some texture in. And these are, it's so close to this colour it's not funny, but I have a point to this, because this creates a little bit of a resist and the beginnings of the texture that I want here. Then I might go back in with forest, and this is just totally different. Obviously, we've sort of made a departure in this bit, but my current favourite thing to do, and who knows, in 2 or 3 years' time, if I was to do this again, I might come up with a totally different picture again. But at the moment, what I'm doing is I love both overhanging branches on the top to frame and this foreground interest. It's really, I find it really interesting, and it's a great way to sort of fix the viewer in the scene too, because all of a sudden it feels as though you're standing there looking through the hedge or whatever. If you have a look at some of my other videos, especially in the favourite fives where I've done little sketches, you'll see quite a bit of this. Now, this is not dark enough because, of course, it's lit by the moon from here. So this area here where we're standing is going to be really quite dark and deep shadow. So let me try. I'm going to use my Faber-Castell Goldfarber sketch marker in dark sepia. This is an alcohol marker. And that will really, it's not great because you can't blend it very well on this paper, but it does give a really deep look, and it's, yeah, it'll come through. I'm not that fussed, that bird's not great. Here again, if you have a look at one of my sketchbooks that it's the My Most Personal Sketchbook Tour Ever. I'll pop a link in the on the screen in a second. You'll see that all of the work that I did in and around COVID, I thought I was really great and coping with it and wondering what everybody else was complaining about. Until I looked back at some of my work and realised how absolutely dire it all was. This one is a Lyra brush duo, also in deep sepia, and gives a different level of sepia. And just sort of keep that vibe going. Yeah, so that is about it. Gosh, I love putting those things on, especially if I'm doing it quite quickly. I'll get it all over my fingers before I get the lid back on. Do drop a comment if you're the same. I hope I'm not the only sufferer. The other thing I would do now is to use a very fine acrylic paint marker. This one's a Thule Art. It's number 32 from the Earth Tone set. And let me make sure it's actually working, because if it isn't, there we go. I think we're going to get something there. Not much, actually. I think I need to clean that nib. What I would do with this, if I could get it to work, let's find one that I can, is to just draw some seed heads. And this is the final sort of layer. That's better, a little bit light, but I can knock that back a bit with some colour if I have to. And like I said, this is quite an autumn picture, so it's in the north of England, so you would expect to still see some seed heads on things. So just go ahead and put those in. So just some dead grasses. This is a dead grass colour. And I can go back in and glaze over the top where it's a little bit too light, which it is in places. It's not the one I wanted. The other one's the one I wanted, but of course it's not going to play ball. So that's bad luck. Extra texture and visual appeal. I feel, again, because this style is my own and I use it a lot, it's more natural for me. It flows more naturally. And I mean, I would add collage to this maybe. Could add some sort of collage effects as well. And it's a lot less control. Like I said, this is not my style. This is a style that influenced me at the time, trying things out. And that happens. It's nothing to worry about. But like I said, you've got to be careful because you don't want it to be close to somebody else's. That's the whole point. Okay, that's probably enough there. And then go back with the forest over the top of some of this, just with a pencil on the side, and glaze it to knock back some of the brighter stems. Doesn't have to take a long time, and you can still see what's going on. Okay, that's the difference between 2021 and 2024. It's to me, it's a lot richer, a lot looser, and a lot, this one's a very naive one. This is not exactly like Natasha Newton's. It's influenced by her, and it's quite close. I love her style, and she does such a great job with it. Do check her work out. You can find her on here as well. But it's not me, and it wasn't me. It was me at the time, and this is me now. So I do hope you enjoyed that. If you like my sketching style and you would like to learn more about mixed media, do consider joining my Patreon. There's a link in the description box below. Leave me a like and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps my channel grow. And do leave me a comment. Let me know what you think and let me know if the same has happened to you. And have you ever looked back? I mean, this is not a long way back. It's a few years. It's not like 10 years, but even in a short time, you can find that your artistic style changes. And what was going on at the time has a really big impact. And I like to see that change, to see how far I've come. It's kind of like weighing yourself, I guess. So I'm weighing my art here to say, well, actually, yes, I like this better. Or I might go back in and say, you know what? I like that better. It just depends. But yeah, the looser style is where I'm at the moment. And if you like that too, like I said, join us on Patreon and I'll show you how I do it in a lot more detail. And there are heaps and heaps of videos on there at the moment too. So I shall see you next week with either another one of these or another favourite 5, depending on where we're at. Yep, see you then. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.